My first job made me a millionaire, but the secret I learned is destroying my mind. I learned the truth of the world on a bed of dead leaves, listening to millionaires scream. It's not in a book. It's not in some dusty scroll. It's painted on the side of barns out here in the Poconos. Stars and tulips, goldfinches and compass roses. Little hex signs nobody thinks about. They're just part of the scenery, like the honeymoon resorts with the heart-shaped tubs and the endless chain restaurants. Quaint, right? Quaint as fuck. We don't have real folklore. Not the deep, dark kind you get down in the hollows of Appalachia. Our woods are tamed, our mountains are mostly just big hills for skiing. But we have things. Stories that stick to you. My Oma told me how the whole town of Purdytown sleeps under the cold, black water of Lake Wallenpaupack. I heard about the guy in Stroudsburg who made it rain inside his friend's house just by thinking about it. And I heard that the Lake Prompton campground was weird, not haunted. The word was always weird. Guests saw strange lights dancing between the trees. They heard voices, thin and sharp, skittering across the lake after dark. People whispered that the woods themselves would change when the season ended, that the paths would move. They said that's why the owners locked the gates tight after September. That last part was a lie. They let people in during the off-season. Special people. And watching them was my first real job. I was 18, rudderless. My friends were either shipping off to college or boot camp. I was stocking shelves at the Weiss Market and living in my parents' basement. So when my dad said he pulled some strings, got me the caretaker gig at Lake Prompton, I couldn't exactly say no. It was a job. So that was my life. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 5 nights a week. During the week, it was a joke. I'd just sit in the little security booth, read paperbacks, and make sure no local kids snuck in to party. They never did. Saturday was different. Saturday, the cars would start arriving around 8. Bentleys and blacked-out Escalades with New York plates crunching up the gravel drive. My job was to open the main gate, nod, and then park their cars for them in the one small paved lot by the entrance. They'd walk off without a word, up the trail that led away from the lake, toward what was called the family field. In the summer, that field was for kickball games and family reunions. In the off-season, it was for something else. My boss, a perpetually tired man named Mr. Albers, told me what happened up there was none of my fucking business. My business was the circles. At the four corners of that huge sloping field were these heavy cast iron plates set flat in the ground. Each one had a symbol etched into it, a spiraling geometric shape that looked like a cousin to the hex signs on the barns. There were 3 more of them down by the lake shore, ringing a small private dock. My job had 2 parts. At 9 p.m. sharp, I had to walk to each of the 4 field circles and light them. Each circle had a thin channel cut into it, filled with a black, crumbly charcoal. I'd strike a single wooden match and touch it to the powder. A line of blue fire would race around the symbol, then settle into a deep, heatless red glow. Wards, Albers had called them once. Then at midnight, on the dot, I had to go light the 3 circles by the lake. As soon as they were glowing, I had to race back up to the field and extinguish the 4 circles there with a special sand. Albers had one rule for me. Don't look at the guests. Don't talk to them. Don't even glance in their direction when you're lighting the circles. I was fine with that. The sounds drifting down from the field were enough. Laughter that sounded too sharp, like it hurt. Joyful shrieks that sounded like pain. And underneath it all, a constant, dry chattering. It wasn't human. It felt like it was riding the wind itself, coming from the deep woods that surrounded the field on 3 sides. When the sun started to bleed over the horizon, the guests would file back to their cars. They'd leave a fat roll of cash on the passenger seat for me. No words, no eye contact, just money. It worked. For 2 months, it was the easiest money I ever made. Then Lior called. We'd been inseparable as kids, but high school split us apart. I was the dirtbag kid cutting class to smoke behind the gym she was always with. Some quarterback, part of a world I had no interest in. But I guess graduation and boredom can erase a lot of that. Halloween fell on a Saturday. She showed up at my little security booth a few minutes after 9, just after I'd lit the field circles. She brought a case of cheap beer and a bag of weed that was way too good for our town. For 3 hours, we had nothing to do but kill time. We got blasted. We talked about everything and nothing. We put quarters in the old jukebox in the dusty game room and screamed along to Bon Jovi. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were kissing and the clock on the wall didn't exist anymore. The first scream ripped through the music at 5 past midnight. It wasn't one of the sounds from the field. This was real, raw terror. I shot up, my heart slamming against my ribs. I ran for the lake, completely forgetting to tell Lior to stay put. The 3 circles by the water were cold and dark. I fumbled with the matchbox, my fingers clumsy. 1 lit. 2. By the time the 3rd one was glowing its soft red, the noise from the field was a symphony of agony. I turned and ran back up the path, Lior right behind me. There was no way to not look. The field was chaos. The rich guests were on the ground, writhing in the dead leaves and mud. Some were clawing at their own faces, others were just convulsing. And they weren't alone. Floating in the air above them, through them, were these things. They weren't orbs. They were more like knots of broken light, shimmering wounds in the air that seemed to suck the color out of everything around them. And the chattering, my God, the chattering wasn't just on the wind anymore, it was coming from them. A million tiny, malicious whispers, a language of pure information hitting my ears like broken glass. The people on the ground were twisting away from it, trying to escape what they were hearing. My mind just focused on the job. Light the circles. Fix this. I stumbled to the first one at the edge of the field, the match shaking in my hand. It caught. The red light flared. I got to the 2nd, then the 3rd. I was almost at the 4th when I heard Lior. She wasn't screaming. She was just standing there, staring at one of the guests, a man in a ruined cashmere sweater. Her voice was a dead monotone. He told her he was sterile. How could he? The boy isn't even his. I didn't have a second to process it. One of the knots of light detached from the screaming man and drifted toward me. I tried to move, to get to the last circle, but it was too fast. It touched my chest, and I knew. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't a voice. It was a fucking data dump. A universe of knowledge crammed into my skull in a single, silent explosion. I knew that Lior had only called me because she was terrified that she was in love with our old friend Noemi, and she needed a distraction, something normal, someone safe. I knew the guests paid for this. They used these things, these knots of light, to get an edge. Insider stock information, political secrets, the private shames of their rivals. I knew the wards were filters. They modulated the flow, letting the guests get just enough information to be useful without being destroyed. I knew I had opened the floodgates. Somehow, I was still on my feet. My own life story felt like a single, faded page in a library the size of a galaxy. I staggered to the 4th circle. I saw the symbol now, not as a pretty pattern, but as an equation, a piece of code written in a language older than any human tongue. I lit the match. The instant the circle glowed red, the chattering stopped. The knots of light didn't fade. They were torn away, ripped back into the blackness of the woods like a deep, sudden inhale. They had what they wanted. They fed on minds. They traded stories for stories, secrets for secrets. I was fired the next morning. Albers just looked at me with dead eyes and told me to get lost. It didn't matter. Despite failing high school algebra twice, I opened a commodity trading account a week later. Lior did too. Within a month, I bought my parents' house for them, cash. I had to move out right after. I couldn't look my father in the eye knowing about the other family he had in Scranton. I think Lior had the same problem. She was living in a Manhattan high-rise by Thanksgiving. The money was supposed to fix things. It didn't. This knowledge, it's a fucking cancer. Ignorance isn't bliss. It's the only thing that keeps us sane. I can't unsee the symbols now. They're everywhere. That swoosh on a sneaker. It's not just a logo. It's a glyph for swiftness, for victory. The twin tails of the mermaid on a coffee cup, a binding rune to ensure return, to create addiction. Millions of kids reading about a boy wizard with a lightning bolt on his forehead, if they only understood what that symbol means, what it primes the mind for. Nothing is innocent. The friendly puppets I watched on TV as a child, the frog, the pig, the bear. Christ, their faces were on my bedsheets. Each one a key, designed to unlock a specific emotional response in a developing brain. Brand loyalty isn't built, it's inscribed. And Halloween, the night it all went to shit. They tell you the veil is thin. It is, but not to the dead. The symbols of the holiday, the jack-o'-lantern in particular, they don't welcome spirits. They pry open your subconscious for suggestion. It's no accident that the Christmas commercials start November 1st. I don't go out much. I can't stand in line for coffee and not know that the guy in front of me is cheating on his wife, and that the barista knows because she's the one he's cheating with. Her shame is a physical taste in the back of my throat. I know the what, the who, the when, the where. I just never get the why. Why are these ancient forces being used to sell us fucking cheeseburgers and sneakers? Why do these symbols have power over us? Why are there things in those woods that can rewrite a human soul? The knots of light. I know they fed, but I don't know what they are. I've spent a fortune searching. The deepest parts of the web, private occult libraries, university archives, there is nothing. Not a single mention. It's like they don't exist, except for the screaming hole they left in my head. And that probably means this story won't last long either. Doesn't matter, I've told it a few times. To other burnouts, other seekers. I'm pretty sure some of them went looking for Lake Prompton. Loose lips don't just sink ships, they can make other people rich and insane too. I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired of knowing everything and understanding nothing. Every second of my life is filled with context-free information, an endless stream of ugly human truths. So I'm going back. The campground is still there. I know it's just one of many places like it now, franchises of the apocalypse. Maybe this time I can learn what those things in the woods are. Maybe I can find out who sits at the top of this symbolic pyramid. Or maybe I'll just end up like the off-season guests, screaming on the ground, my mind finally washed away by a tide of pure, undiluted truth. Honestly, I'm not sure which one I'm hoping for.